Hi everybody, Dr. Samantha Luther here with SJL Wellness, and today my webinar is going to be about anxiety, stress, and sleep. So out of those three topics, I'm sure that all of us, not all of us, well I guarantee you all of us have experienced one of them. Stress for sure, and if you haven't, congratulations, you are a rarity. But if we haven't experienced one of them, maybe we have experienced all three at the same time. But I'm here today just to kind of give you some information, to shed some light, provide some answers for you as to why, what happened, what's going on, and to give you some hope that this doesn't have to be the way it is for you, and that there is, some answers and hope and results that you can get from, just understanding the stuff that I'm going to be sharing with you today. So we might be experiencing stress from different times and different points in our lives, and each chapter, each year, each month is going to be different for a lot of us. And stress is something that we can't get away from. We can't run from. It's just part of life. I'm going to be talking about normal, quote unquote, normal stressors that we have within our everyday lives and how we can kind of have an impact on that. And, of those stresses, how many are we allowing to come into our body? Because we can control some of them. Some of them we cannot. That's for sure. That's a given. But within the ones that we can control, I'm going to share with you how. So then that's one less thing that your body, or another less stress that your body's having to navigate. It's another stress that's less that you're having to not maybe have it going towards that threshold that we're going to be talking about here in just a little bit. And then with that stress honestly just kind of, if it becomes overabundance, overwhelmed, overstimulated, and your body becomes overstimulated with all of the stress, there becomes a point within your body that it's almost like a tipping point, and that can turn into anxiety. Anxiety is a part of our life as well. It can be it's kind of almost like a protective mechanism, but whenever it becomes too much and too often, and you don't know quite how to adapt and to utilize it in a healthy way, it becomes part of your life. It becomes a controlling part of your life that can be very, very scary. It can almost feel like you're going down this horrible rabbit hole with no end in sight and how to get out of there. But like I say, anxiety is part of life, but in unhealthy amounts. And like I say, not knowing how to adapt, not knowing how to take it on, that's when it becomes a chronic issue. And that's whenever we start to see all sorts of other symptoms factor in. It's not a fun thing to go through. I work with a lot of clients that they have come in and on their form, anxiety is always there. The stress and anxiety is always there. And then of course, sleep is going to be off and horrible. So let's go ahead and dive into first stress. So every day we have stresses. I'm going to first talk about the ones that we're able to maybe control a little bit more. And those are going to be called what I like to consider the 3 T's. So we have thoughts, we have traumas, and we have toxins every single day in our life. So our thoughts, let's start there. Our body and our brain loves to take what you feed it mentally and physically and does what it wants to do with that. So if it's giving good information, positive thoughts, positive vibes, good things, even though things might not be going good in your life, but if you take it and it's how you react to it and that's what you're feeding your brain with, it's going to make better neural pathways within your brain that allow maybe the anxiety not to factor in because you're focusing on the positive. I know this sounds kind of like, oh yeah, hippie, whatever, but it's true. But if we are always in a person that's always going into the negative realm and the negative thought process and the fear and the worry and the stress and the anxiety kind of factors of everything, that's what your brain's going to go off of. It's going to feel like it's in a constant threat mode almost, and that's what anxiety feels like. It's almost like your body's under a constant threat. But with those stresses, like I say, the thoughts, that's where it's going to start to factor into on one of the first T's that we're talking about. Traumas are going to be part of our life as well. These can be physical and emotional. Traumas can be, you know, this, and like we're talking about stress here. Once again, we're not quite to the anxiety part, but traumas that are coming into your body that your body has to take on and adapt to those stresses. So trauma might be physical, like you fall off your bike, kids fall off their bikes, you know, lose a job. There's another stress that's coming into your body. That's a trauma. That's a traumatic event. Like another physical one, you know, you're working out, maybe you went too hard or you hurt yourself. There's another trauma. And like the other traumas then too, you know, like financial situations. You might have lost a job. Your partner might have changed jobs. You might have added another child into your family. Children are fantastic, but they're another stress. They really are. I hate to tell you, kids, but it can be stressful. But they're another stress that's having to factor into your body or into your life. And so there's just another one that your body's having to figure out. It's having to process. It's having just to adapt to. And we're talking about adaptability and how that factors into how we are able to handle stress within our life. And then the last one I want to talk about is toxins. That's not like you're going and putting toxic material into your body. I'm talking here more on the nutritional aspect. What you're feeding your body. If you're feeding your body good, nutritious, whole foods, your body knows how to recognize those better, and it knows how to then process them, digest them, and do what they need to do and get them to the parts of the body to help for healing, nutrition, you know, and supplying all that. But if you're feeding your body, and what's one thing whenever we do get stressed out, I tell you what, when I'm stressed out, I am not reaching for a salad. I'm not going, oh yay, I can't wait to eat a salad. No, you're gonna reach for the burgers, the fries, the candies, the chocolates, and all, like just whatever if you're sweet or if you're savory, you're gonna reach for those foods that are just not as good for you. And then that causes a stress within your body, because then you're feeding it foods that your body doesn't necessarily, it's gonna recognize, but it's not gonna be real happy with digesting it. It's gonna be harder on the system. The stomach's gonna have to release its pancreatic, and I mean its juices, and the pancreas is gonna have to release its juices and the hormones and everything that goes into factoring digestion. The body's gonna have to do a surge of that to help it digest, to keep your blood sugars levels regulated, and just to make sure that everything's going as smooth as it can. So once again, that's a stress into the body, and almost an unneeded stress whenever you already have enough probably going on. And so whenever I said, whenever you have something that's happened, you know, that's the other thing I'm talking about. We're able to kind of control our thoughts, sometimes traumas, and our toxins that we put into our body, but then we have everyday life. We have work stress. We have family stress. We have personal stress that we all go through. And it's all of those things that kind of factor in, and our bodies constantly, our nervous system primarily, is the system within our body that has to process all of that, all of our emotions. It's our brain. What's our brain? It's part of our nervous system. All of our, you know, physical work that we do, that's part of the nervous system as well. It's taking on those stresses. Everything that we just go on, and we experience life through our nervous system, and life can be stressful, but I'm here to talk about how maybe we can help you be better able to adapt to those stressors. So then with stress, we all have a tipping point. Some of ours is much greater than others. My goal is to help you either do better at adapting to your stress, or even pushing your stress threshold further down the line so you don't quite meet it as quick. Some people, like I say, their fuse can be really short with stress, and bam, they're there. There's a lot of people that it takes a lot to keep building, and their threshold's bigger, and that's okay. But with stress, and kind of now leading into, and we'll talk about stress's impact on the body and how chiropractic factors in at the end here. But with stress, and what I was just saying there, as we allow that stress to continuously build up within our body, within our nervous system, and people are like, oh my God, I just feel like my nerves are shot. They are, if you're not adapting to the stresses that you're given, and then your body's unable to adapt to it, therefore in a physiological manner. So once your body just keeps taking on stress, it's going to hit that breaking point. It's gonna hit that threshold where all of a sudden you now can't, like, you know, maybe at night you've been able to like kick it back and things go back to okay the next day, but eventually you're gonna get to a point where you go over this bump, this hump. And that's whenever you might start to notice anxiety starting to set in more frequently. Not daily quite yet. Maybe you're starting to have a little bit of those anxiety, you know, feelings, the racing heart, the shortness of breath, the sweaty palmy hands, almost like you can't catch your breath, headache, tensed muscles, pain everywhere, digestive issues, and we'll get into how that factors in. You know, so you might be constipated, you might have diarrhea. All of these things, it just kind of gives you those anxious feelings. And now you've been there. Maybe you finally hit a point and it was a panic attack or an anxiety attack. That's that bump that we go from stress, 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 overload, 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 overwhelm, 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 boop, boop. There's our first kind of anxiety issue, panic attack, unhealthy ways of dealing with that anxiety. So now you're there. You've had your first one. Well, guess what? If we kind of keep continuing on, those anxiety attacks are going to keep happening. Those panic attacks are going to keep happening. And then that becomes, and then some people, it's the symptoms that they're feeling that give them the anxiety. It's like the racing heart, the shortness of breath, the, you know, neck, chest pain. What does that all sound like? It sounds like a freaking heart attack. And so if you're having those issues, some people get scared of their anxiety symptoms, and then they become more anxious because of their symptoms, and then their symptoms keep happening, and you can see how this is just a horrible, vicious cycle. And it's hell. It is literal hell. Trust me, I've been there. I would not want anyone to be there, and that's my goal, is to help any of you and reach out to any of you that are going through any of this. There is some help, and here's some of your answers. And so once we've reached that anxiety threshold, it's a tough one to break, but you can do it. And now we're going to be talking about, how did I get here? What happened? How come I was unable to adapt to those stresses and like get it under wraps before it turned into anxiety? Like, what in the heck happened? And here's what's going on. So within our nervous system, and let me go on a quick little side note here before we talk about the nervous system. Once you've reached a point of anxiety, and it becomes, you know, kind of debilitating for you and a hard part for you, there are so many ways of going about getting help. I'm here to educate you on how your nervous system works and how it factors in, and how it can be like the root cause of your anxiety and stress. And that way you feel educated, you feel empowered when you go to talk to your GP or your mental health therapist. And I say, get everybody on board, talk with them, you know, show your concerns. Just don't take, you know, what they say, and if it doesn't quite sit right with you, reach out to someone else. Find something that feels right within yourself. And always, and like, I'm a big proponent of mental health therapists. I think we all should have one. It's nothing that should be a stigma by this day and age. Get the help that you need. Those mental health therapists are there for you. Sometimes just talking about it and getting it off your shoulders and off your chest, saying, I'm struggling with this, it's now not this dark secret or this thing that you're holding on within you. It's out. And by God, talk to your friends about it. You would be blown away if you sit here with another 5 of your friends, how many other of them have gone through the exact same thing that you are going through now. Knowing that there are others that are going through it now, that have gone through it, and you're seeing where they're at now, you no longer feel alone. You no longer feel like it's all in your head, or it's all, you know, you're the only one suffering with this and you don't want to say anything because you feel like, oh my gosh, they're gonna look at me like I'm crazy. No, please don't. Please get the help. Please talk about it. Talking is the best thing. And don't let pride get in the way of your healing and your life that you can have on the other side of this. The anxiety, like I say, stress and anxiety can be something that never goes away. It might be something that we just learn how to process and we learn how to deal with, but you guys need that help and those other little trinkets to help kind of become part of your little basket and little basket of tools that you have to fight this. So how I want to share with you and how having a nervous system that is less stressed, less overstimulated, and less overwhelmed is going to allow your nervous system to go into a different mode that your body maybe has not experienced for a while. Because once again, once we have that build up of stress, you will eventually hit a tipping point, and that threshold, you blast through it, and now anxiety has set in. And anxiety and depression kind of go hand in hand. They're kind of a Bert and Ernie type of a thing. So if yours is depression, you know, kind of the same things going on here on like how your nervous system is impacted. So let's talk about that. So as we take on all the stresses that I mentioned about earlier on this video, we have the everyday stresses. Maybe you're doing good at them, maybe you're not. Maybe you are practicing meditation, you're exercising, you're getting fresh air, you're drinking your water, and you're eating good. But there still comes a point like, God, I'm doing all of this and it just doesn't, like, I still feel like I'm tensed up. Hey, give yourself some grace. You're doing all the things that you can, but now there's a part of your body, a part of, which is the nervous system, that it has gotten kicked in to what we call sympathetic tone. And it's the we have two parts of our nervous system. We have the sympathetic nervous system and we have the parasympathetic nervous system. And they are buddies, but one buddy is always going to be the stronger of the two. They can never be on at the same time. One's either going to be kicked on and the other one shut off, and vice versa. So we have our sympathetic nervous system, which is considered our fight or flight response, our stress response. It's a needed and vital part of our nervous system. If we didn't have it, if a car came crashing into this room right now and my sympathetic nervous system wasn't activated or working properly, I would just sit here and get blasted by a car. That's not good. So it would kick in and I would go jumping out of the way to get the heck out of the way so I wouldn't get hit by that car. Or you're at a red light and you need to stop in time and you see somebody else like driving across. You slam on the brakes. That's your sympathetic nervous system kicking in the adrenaline, kicking in the cortisol, saying, hey, stop. And you get stopped. So like that's a good part of our nervous system to have, but it shouldn't stay in that heightened state of stress and threat. It should be able to come back down. Once that moment has passed, most of us might be a little worked up for just a little bit, but then we're gonna come back down and we're gonna be in what we call a parasympathetic tone, which is the other part of the nervous system. And parasympathetic is whenever our body's able to rest, it's able to digest, relax, grow, develop, and produce all of these lovely good hormones that our body wants to do versus the adrenaline and cortisol and the threatening type ones. And so we want to kind of bring that back down into parasympathetic tone. But if you're a person, and a lot of us are, especially this day and age, and if you're constantly stress, threat, can't handle it, can't juggle all the threats that are coming towards us, we are eventually going to hit that point and we're going to stay stuck in that sympathetic tone. And so when our gas pedal gets locked on, our body's not going to be able to know how to adapt and come back into that rest and digest. And let me take just one quick break there while I go grab my forms. Okay, we're back. And so whenever I had talked about you constantly get stuck in this heightened stressed mode and threat, and your body then becomes less immune, I'm gonna say, to those threats and those stresses. And each time, like those fuses, the little fuses within your body, that you have a long fuse or you have a short fuse, each time that just becomes habitual within your brain and how your brain takes that threat and that stress on, those fuses are going to get shorter and shorter. Your threshold's going to get smaller and smaller. And it's like it's just going to happen more and more. And what is that doing to our brain? It's conditioning it. Our brain is super smart. And if it gets conditioned in that threat, stress, fight or flight mode, it's going to kick into it quicker, faster, and a lot more common. So The good news though is about the brain is it's plastic. There's something called neuroplasticity, and that just means that our brain has the ability to adapt. It's plastic, which means it isn't rigid, and those wires or those pathways that like the constant quick turning over, quick short fuses, all of those, it has the ability to change. Just because you're that way now, that doesn't mean you have to be that way for forever. Your body has the ability to change and adapt. The second we are able to bring that body back into a parasympathetic tone, we start to maybe meditate. We start to now go to a mental health therapist. We start seeing our chiropractor to bring us back into that parasympathetic tone. Our brain has the ability to change those pathways, and we're now going to go down this fork in the road. We don't want to go down to this one where we're cooking and our fuses are short. We don't want to go down that anymore. It caused me to be anxious. It caused depression within me. I don't want that anymore. I want over here where I can rest and heal and digest, feel good, have energy, no more brain fog, and my body can actually heal. Many people who you might have known who are high stressed, they might be sick a lot more because the nervous system and the immune system are interlinked so and intertwined so closely that they're gonna fight a lot more health issues. Stress is the #1 cause of disease within the entire world. And so like to help us get out of that fight or flight stress mode and get us into parasympathetic is going to save so many people. It's not even just like their stress and anxiety levels and sleep, which we still have to touch base on. It's going to save them from a whole host of issues and stuff later on. Heart disease, cancer. I know there's things that we cannot prevent these all. Like if we can lower the stress within our body's going to be happier on the inside, and it's not just going to be this hormonal, nervous tone crap storm, excuse my French, that's going on within our body. Is going to be able to heal and flow as it should. And so talking about that stress response and like the brake pedal and the gas pedal and the brake pedal, it's like whenever we're talking about like the clicking on and the cooking, that is what we consider, and in my office, the gas pedal is stuck on. It is like a Ferrari engine with bicycle brakes. If you are constantly pressed on and in a fight or flight mode stress response, you're gonna be all the way over here in that red and in this huge amount of where all those thoughts, traumas, and toxins come in, and then everyday other life things that come in. And the more stress we get, the more that gas pedal is pressed on. And with gas pedal issues, that's kind of going to be where the stress response and the nervous system gets stuck into that fight or flight, like I mentioned. So we want to be applying that brake system, and the brake system within our body is that parasympathetic nervous system that brings us back down into a rest and digest phase. It brings everything back to being calm. Like I say, you can't sit there you can if you're crazy, but you can't sit there with the gas pedal on full ramp, and you can't sit there with the brake on. You can, but you know what happens whenever you let go? You go and then you crash. Okay, so what my goal is to bring everyone's attention to, let's get out of this constant fight or flight stress response and bring it back into this parasympathetic. How do you do that, doc? How in the world are you going to bring me back into that? So within our nervous system and in our brain, and so we have the lovely brain that sits way up top up here that's not there, but then we have our spinal system and our spinal cord that goes down within our spine. So our spinal cord is housed within our spine, and there are parts of our spine that house way up top and way down low that parasympathetic nervous system. That's where those nerves are found. That's where us as chiropractors know where they are at, how they're functioning, how they're doing, and how can we help that nervous system get kicked on and help shut down the sympathetic fight or flight response. So let's kick on the good and help kick back down the aggressive guy. He's not bad, but he's aggressive. And so how we do that is within our office, we have neurological scanning equipment that lets us know where that person's body is in the realm. Are they more caught in fight or flight stress response, sympathetic tone, or are they in more of a rest and digest parasympathetic tone? And so we have that neurological scanning system to be able to do that. And a lot of times it'll then show way up top in our cervical spine and way down low in the sacral region where those parasympathetic nerves are. They might be not firing as good as they should, or they might be too much. That's where us as chiropractors were able to find where that fixation is within the spine, causing those nerves to maybe get diminished down a little bit, and the proper signaling from the body to the brain and the brain back to the body. That communication isn't happening as it should. So as chiropractors, we just go in there, let's see how their nervous system is functioning. Let's find where this nerve stress is at, and let's bring that stress down so the body is able to heal and rest and digest, like we've talked about so many times here. So that's just kind of how we find it. In regards to sleep and how this all factors into sleep, and if you have noticed issues within yourself or within your kids or a husband or a spouse or anybody like that that's having sleep issues, if we are caught, and how many of us have had like an anxious moment, or we have like a big event the next day, how do you sleep the night before? Not very good. We all went kind of through a really stressful phase with the coronavirus. I was sleeping horrible during that time because there was so much uncertainty, so much anxiety, so much stress, so much unknown. Now, we all probably didn't go through that and experience that much whenever we're all going through that on a daily basis, but there's going to be times in our lives where we have way more stress and way more things that are going to make us anxious at different parts of our time, at different parts of our life. And so that's when it's really important to hone in and like, how is my nervous system? How am I feeling on the inside? Your nervous system does not lie to you. It lets you know. And those little shortened fuses, those little cries of help, the racing heart, the, you know, shortness of breath, those are cry for help from inside of your body saying, hey, there's way too much going on in here. I need you to help me get calmed down. And as chiropractors, this is one of my favorite ones to work with. Yes, I can help with back pain, neck pain, headache, but to help somebody get over and to help somebody work along and be along with them along their side on their journey through anxiety, through depression, and seeing the light at the end of the tunnel for them, there is not a whole lot more. I mean, other than like the kiddos that I love working with, and I love working with kids and anxiety and stress and depression, but to get your mental health back in check to where you feel like the cloud has maybe lifted, you're able to focus again, the brain fog has you know, released as well. You're able to be a part of your family again, and you're able to do good at work again and be an awesome part of society that you already are, but maybe in your own skin you weren't feeling that way. And to help people get to that point, to feel comfortable in their own skin, and to know that like they have control back over their body, back over their mind, and how their body adapts and responds to stress. So maybe they don't get to that anxiety level again, and maybe they're able to, you know, bring that stress back down and have a higher threshold, or to extend their threshold out. Or if they do reach their threshold with stress, they're able to know like, hey, maybe my nervous system is just cooking a little bit too much and it's go, 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 go. Maybe it's time to help get that bad boy kicked back down and get that parasympathetic nervous system turned back on. Whenever our nervous system is kicking on too much in that stress, just so many other parts of our body go awry. And you'll notice that. You'll notice maybe your skin's, you know, breaking out, or maybe your digestive tract isn't working as it should. And there's a whole gut-brain connection that we could talk about. But if we're constantly caught in fight or flight, we're worried, we are more concerned about getting the heck out of Dodge, getting the threat released. Our body is more concerned about that than worrying about digesting the burger that I shouldn't say burger, digesting the salad that we had at lunch. It's not thinking about that. So our digestive tract kind of shuts down, kicks down. You'll see a lot more constipation. And it's like if those toxins then aren't getting out of the body, and there's that brain-gut connection, that's going to be shifted and completely off as well. So it's kind of a whole, like you can see all the things, and we just touched base on a little of this, all of the factors that go into an overstressed, overtaxed nervous system. It isn't good for the body. And I just wanted to kind of bring to you guys and shed the light on stress and anxiety and sleep. Let me go back to the sleep. I haven't even covered that. We don't sleep well when we're stressed. Whenever our body and our mind are constantly turned on and they're cooking, and what I mean by cooking, they're just clicking along, it can't come back down. And you know, I hear so many people say, like, I just can't shut my brain off. It just doesn't shut off. Well, no, because you're constantly clicking that switch and that breaker and that fuse. You're always on the brink of that. And your body has just gone down that pathway, and it's having a hard time making that turn back over here to the parasympathetic tone of resting, digesting, and healing. And so that's when sleep gets affected. So then you don't sleep well. Well, then your stress level's up again because you didn't sleep well. Then the stress level's high, and now you have more stress because now there's anxiety. You can see how this constantly is just like a hamster wheel. And so to break that cycle, reach out to me. I would love to help you. Let's see some people get some scans and be like, what's going on? And then once we kind of alleviate that stress and get that parasympathetic tone back on, once again, last thing, it can rest, it can digest, and it can heal. It can heal everything from the inside out. And that's where we focus on as chiropractors. We don't necessarily focus on the outside in. We focus on the inside out and healing you from there. So I hope this has helped some of you. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. You can personal message me on my Facebook page here, or otherwise my number is 402-432-7702, or email is sjlwellness@gmail.com. And let me tell you also the last thing, stress and anxiety is not bias. It can hit any of us. And what I mean by any of us, pay attention to your kids. Kids go through it too. I'm going to be doing one on stress and anxiety with kiddos. Their lives are completely different than how it was whenever we were growing up. There's a lot more stresses for them. And so just pay attention to them. If they're not sleeping well either, or if you just notice anxious things within them, don't brush it off, because with kids, they're starting that short fuse, that perpetual wheel right there at a younger age. We're adults, and most of the times, like, we should be able to kind of, like, I felt at my time, I should be able to handle this a little bit more. I'm an adult. These are kids. Their brains haven't even fully developed, and to help them nip that in the bud early on will only help them as they become young, you know, even teenagers and young adults and into adulthood. And so they need it too. They're stressed, they might be anxious, and we'll be doing another webinar on kids' stress and anxiety and helping them, because they don't deserve it. They deserve, you know, a life to live worry and stress, not stress-free, because there's always going to be stress, but worry and fear-free, and just so they can have the best little lives that they can have. But that's just, like I say, another topic. But just be paying attention to your kiddos too. If you're teachers, you know, your students, coaches, your athletes, just kind of be on the lookout. And like I say, it's nothing to take lightly, and we can just help so many kids before they get to a point, you know, where it just might be a little bit too much for them to handle. So happy to be with you guys today. Thanks for listening, and until next time, have a good one.